From Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to the Lucas and Roddenberry franchises, the Martian Chronicles, and beyond, science fiction is undeniably a part of our culture. But what exactly is science fiction? And how do you write a science fiction novel? This series will attempt to answer those questions.
Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of Live Science Fiction with Kate and Adam. And we're having a chuckle here right at the beginning because I've got, as per Adam's request, I've actually got the fisherman hat on again. And if you can't tell, I've got my headphones on. And for some reason, I'm trying to imagine myself as the captain of this particular vessel flying through space. And it doesn't seem to me that I command any kind of leadership with the hat the way it is. Like, I don't know if it screams fearless leader in terms of following me as we're, going into another planet or,
I mean, I would follow you into the lake to the best fishing spots.
Right. Yeah. I'd be like, why are you wearing your headphones, dude? I'd be like, what? I can't hear you.
So Dan's problem, everybody. Dan's problem is that the headphones, the hat's not big enough to fit the headphones. So we think that there's really a niche market here for fishing hats with built-in headphones. Dan's going to be your number one customer.
Well,
I think so. But wait,
is it so unreasonable with so many people spending time on video calls like this one that things like innocuous things that headphones become fashion statements? Why not?
They should be. The fashionable headphones. Well, have you seen, see it on TikTok all the time, the headbands that have speakers over your ears so you can sleep and listen to music and tune out your spouse's snoring? For me, it'd be my dog snoring. But, he's got the flow back.
Okay,
Looking sharp, Dan. I'm eating dark chocolate and disgusting Adam because he's a milk chocolate person.
I know my kids are like that. One's dark and one's milk.
And white chocolate all the way. I think everyone knows that.
That's not chocolate. That's milk and sugar.
It sounds racist to me, I think.
All the way.
Okay. Before you came on here, Adam and I we were feeling guilty because neither of us got to write. And I said, that's okay. This is going to be one of our best recordings ever because we're going to talk about a racy subject. And he looked at me like, that's crazy, as he usually does. And then I said, this is going to be super awkward for us because we don't usually talk about this kind of stuff, but it has to be brought up and it has to be addressed in the book is how do we have sex in the future? Like, not me and you. How does a character have sex? What is sex like? What is physical intimacy like, right?
Haven't you seen Demolition Man?
Yes, I have. Where they wear the things.
Yeah.
Demolition
You know what
Man.
you're talking about, Dan?
Was that with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Sylvester Stallone.
Stallone.
Oh,
and,
right.
Sandra Bullock.
And the basketball guy. Snipes. Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes, yeah.
Okay. Well, please do explain.
So that in the movie Demolition Man in the future, they put on these headsets and they don't touch each other, but the headset creates images of them in intimate positions and then creates the feeling in the body.
Oh.
And then Sylvester Stallone is the old school guy. He's like, takes it off and throws it on the ground. He's like, well.
Tries to kiss her
Yeah,
and she's like, ew.
Yeah. Like, nobody does that. That's
Fluid to
gross.
fluid transmission. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
He's like, well.
So, yeah.
I'm not at a loss for words. This is really interesting, actually. It's, I watched Superman, the most recent Superman. I watched it again. And this is the one where Russell Crowe is the father. And there's the scenes on their homeland, on Krypton, where, the civilization no longer has natural births. Okay. So,
yeah.
The conception happens with some sort of like master relic and, that sort of process of procreation is all predetermined. And so, I know we're kind of jumping ahead because there's the I guess the enjoyable part of courtship and the act of well, there's so much that we can talk about with the act of sex, right?
In our book, remember, Quinn gets the notification that he's been approved for co-parenting, so that a child is supplied to them, right, from their DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Like you apply with your DNA, your background, all your information, and if you get chosen and selected with a co-parent, like there is no need for marriage relationships or physical contact whatsoever. Right? He still dates and he's having a hard time connecting. And one of the things that Quinn says in his book is that his partner, his co-parent partner, is so easy to get along with. But he doesn't make the relation in any way that this could be a potential person that he would connect with, right? So all of the relationships have been segregated. But we didn't talk about sex, and we should talk about sex because sex sells.
It does. Yeah, it does sell.
And this is awkward because as business partners, we don't talk about sex. So this is a really great episode to tune in on because we're talking about sex.
Okay. Yeah. It's not, it's okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how awkward is it to talk? I mean, for you guys, it's actually not. It's just interesting to me, right? I find it really interesting.
I've seen this in science fiction handled one of two ways.
Okay.
First, you use, some of the latest alien movies. When you're stuck with a crew on a spaceship for a long period of time, sex becomes just like one of those things like eating. So like the different male and female combinations on the ship, just like kind of transactionally just go get it done and then move on with their lives, but, without getting messy. There's like an understanding that this is just not,
so emotions removed from it. It's a physical.
They try to. Like the human experience, I think, causes emotion that, but there's more of that transactional type intercourse happening. Second way I've seen is the Starship Troopers in that book. And I can't remember, it was the Forever War. Anyway, the way they handle it is when you get on the ship, and you're on a ship for a long time because you're traveling through space, and you're months and months and months or even years to get to your destination. They go in and they adjust your brain so everyone's homosexual. So they solve it that way.
Wait, like homosexual? Sorry, but you still have sexual desire.
Yeah, just you're not producing children, so it's not a problem.
Oh, you're not reproductive. You're not having babies on the spaceship.
Correct.
Okay.
So babies can't. There wouldn't be there. So, and then when you get back from doing every
So you don't mean homosexual, you mean asexual.
No. In the book, they switch your.
So they're still having sex.
Mm-hmm.
They're just now attracted to the same sex, so you're not reproducing.
Exactly. And then when you get back from whatever you're doing, they just switch back. That's how they handled it in that book.
Yeah, because there's not layers of complexity in our attraction.
I feel like he grazed over
really grazed
that part.
over that.
It was a simple, mathematical.
That's not a switch. It's not a switch. Jeez. Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Okay, so can I the reason is that I'm spinning a little bit. I usually can stay ahead of you guys, but this is it's harder to get ahead of this one. So imagine writing something and you create a world of experience where a normally heterosexual male or female is now feeling and experiencing same-sex attraction. Like that's amazing to me because I can't. I've had situations in my life where I've had friends that are homosexual, and I'll say and this one that comes to my head is I say, how can you not like a girl, like a woman, like a beauty, a voluptuous? Like, how do you not just want to be in that, right? How does it? Nothing. So then I'm thinking to myself, right? Like, so this is the base of my, that's there's something base there, right?
Okay. And flip side to that. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, what? 30? I'm in my 30s. Let's not specify where in about.
29.
Yeah, it's probably 29.
Yeah.
I'm probably not even 30 yet. Anyway, I was sitting having dinner with some friends. We were having some drinks. And we got talking about like sexuality, homosexuality, that kind of stuff, like bi, trans, all that, the gender piece and everything like that. And we had these conversations, and it's like, they're like, well, have you ever been attracted to the same sex? And I'm like, oh yeah, like 3 times in my life. Like once to the point where I almost asked a girl out. They're like, so you're bisexual? And I'm like, I am. But I never identified that way, right? Like, I never acted on it, but I almost did. So like in my mind, and then I had this huge epiphany moment where it was like, yeah, I guess that could be a part of my identity, because I physically have been attracted to the same sex. And I've been okay with it. Like to the point where I was like, but I got too nervous to ask the girl out. She's my dance teacher. and when I was living in Toronto, I was taking an adult dance class.
But did you know that she was
no
bisexual at all? It just had nothing to do with that, right?
Nothing to do with it. I was attracted to her. I was attracted to her person. I wanted
to be closer around her more in a physical way, right?
In a physical way, yeah. And it was really interesting to me because it was this epiphany moment where it was like, I never associated with it. But so how in your life, maybe you just haven't met the right guy, Dan.
No, I have a response to that. And it's like, so I've been intellectually attracted to people, and intellectual compatibility is very important for me with a partner of the opposite sex, right? But I have had, been intellectually attracted to the opposite sex, but there's no there's something about.
So let's dive into this. What if in the virtual world, okay, the person shows up as the opposite sex? Because now we have avatars.
Like like my twin flame or partner or something is now a male.
Yeah, like how would you recognize in this metaverse? Like, do you end up? Are there rules around it? Can you just look like whoever?
It's the ultimate catfish, right? And we get
oh, that's so funny.
Catfishing become acceptable that we're so intellectually matched that let's go physical on this journey, and I will be what attracts you physically, and you be what attracts me physically. Are we going to remove those limitations and say that's okay because we're so intellectually matched? Are we going to find deeper connection or less connection?
Adam, help me out here. I feel like
are you struggling?
Well, I think as in the last decade or 20 years, I think we've seen a shift from a binary sexuality description to a spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where you land on that spectrum, maybe it shifts depending on where you are in your life. If you're in college and you're trying things out, maybe you're open to shifting one way or the other, right? So, I think this is why we're ending up with so many letters in the acronym, right? Like people aren't identifying with this or that or the other thing. We're looking at it as if it's a discrete one or the other when it's really a spectrum,
and it's a fluid spectrum.
And if you look, historically, I mean, the Romans were, having sex with anyone and everyone all the time. Didn't matter if you were male or female or whatever. That was pretty normal.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, likely
religion.
The influence of Christianity, it became you're either this or that, and this one's bad, right? So, when I think about the future and this, idea of that, I try to imagine it as where it's much more accepted that it is this fluid spectrum, right? No one gives a shit. It's less, social stigma. And I give you an example. I was at a strip club once.
Go on.
This is always the beginning of a good. Okay, good. I was at a strip club once.
Good.
So now I never. Anyway, we're at the strip club, and it's always dark in there, right? It's darker and it's loud, and then there's like the dancers on stage. But you're drinking and socializing as you normally would. So unless you're sitting, you know, in the road is watching, you kind of just like blends into the background. And we were sitting there talking, and there were a bunch of people, and there was girls and guys, and we're all kind of, and then the music stopped, and like the next performer came on.
Must have been Boudoir Rouge.
And this one, I don't know, is that the one on 9th Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, I don't know.
So anyway, the next dancer comes on, right? And she still had, she was still dressed in the outfit or whatever. But like the music that played and the way she walked, I swear to God, the whole place stopped. And I saw just as many women salivating as men in that instance when that woman came on. She was just oozed sexuality out of like every pore of her body, that like the whole place just like stopped. And I just was burned into my brain, as much as I had to drink as I did, because I was just like, the women were as entranced as the men were.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with male, female, or otherwise. It was just like pure sexuality, just like radiating. And I don't know, just remember that.
Yeah, I had when I was, living as a bachelor, or in my younger days when I had roommates and stuff and had, parties and everything. We'd been in Calgary, actually. It had a Playboy or something on the coffee table. It wasn't the dudes that picked it up, ever.
Oh, no.
Right? It was always the women that wanted to look through it.
Right.
Always.
Okay, so I think girls, and maybe it's the way we're raised, we are more open, I think, in general, to the flux, the spectrum. I don't know why. I don't know if there's psyche behind it. I don't know if it's why we're raised, but we're more accepting of it naturally.
I'd agree with that.
Right? I feel that. That's been my experience. Like, it's more like, hey, whatever, kind of go with the flow. Like, I don't know what it is, whether it's because we're more connected to our emotions, where we're less worried about perception, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it is. So, but okay, let's take it to the future. It's the future.
Yeah.
Would you, I guess this is like, maybe it's a would you rather game. We could play would you rather. Would you, like, if you're in the realm, right? You're in the metaverse, and the person looks attractive to you, whatever that is, guy, girl, it's a girl for you, Dan. We've established this. That's your jam. And they're intellectually matched, right? Okay, you're not married. There's no complications there. Like, does it matter what gender they have at the other side of it?
Yeah, because and I'm just going with this, but yeah, I mean, I like curves, and I like.
That's how they show up. That's how they show up in the metaverse.
So
I see.
Want to know?
Would you want to know?
Maybe you don't want to.
Do you care?
Right?
Does it matter?
Maybe they're 300 pounds, right? Just wouldn't want to know.
I see I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You don't see their physical being. You see their projection of who they are.
There's actually a reality show I just heard about on the radio that's starting up that is this exact premise.
The Catfish.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've watched it.
Yeah. So it's like people are.
Or like it's like Apartment 9 or something like that.
They're able to communicate. They can't see each other.
That's right.
And then they have to like commit to going and blah, blah, blah.
And some people are intentionally catfishing. Some people aren't. And you're trying to find out who's catfishing. And
wow, that's fascinating. That's really interesting.
It's a great. But this is happening right now. This is happening on online dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are always saying, "I'm not being catfished. Should I be worried?" In fact, this came up on my TikTok video. A guy was like, am I being catfished? And like the question is, does it matter?
Yeah, maybe in the future it doesn't matter, because you're talking about like a form of an avatar. You just say, I want to, like, if I really wanted to try out being somebody super sensual or female, I could embody that, and I could try it out without the physical.
I think sometimes when you have issues with body image, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
You have a perception in your head of what you look like or want to look like or how you see yourself. And when you look in the mirror, and if you see something different.
Mm.
And that creates a lot of problems, which, I think, if you talk about the spectrum of LGBTQ and all that stuff, right, that's like very distressing for someone to.
No, I got some serious questions now. You really kind of piqued this philosopher's mind here.
Okay, here we go.
Let's do it.
So if you go into, right, like I'll give you an example, right? Like I haven't had hair for like 15 years. But still, when I see myself in pictures, there's like a moment where I'm surprised.
That you don't have hair?
Still. So there's like an image in my head of myself that.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Right?
Which is interesting because the image of you in my head never had hair.
Right.
And when I saw a picture of you with hair, I was like, whoa, like zooming in, I'm like, is that Adam? Weird. Because I cannot picture you any other way.
There you go. So,
okay, so you want to hear my questions? This is it's kind of getting it's not dirty or vulgar, but it may be taken that way. But anyway, so I want you to imagine, like I'm trying to visualize this type of thing and say, okay, if I wanted to try out being a female, right? Mm-hmm. There's a certain amount of curiosity that I would that I think is very interesting about being a receiver. Without the action of actually that imagination of a woman receiving me, right, is something very, very erotic. Now, to position myself on the receiving end of that with the proper equipment would be very interesting, right? Like, because I'd be experiencing what I'm fantasizing about, basically.
That's right.
That would be.
You're not alone in that fantasy. There's lots of people who fantasize playing the other role.
There's probably a natural curiosity about that, right? There's like,
well,
it's like the argument, right? What's more painful, getting kicked in the nuts or giving birth? Right?
Wow.
Time out here.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
Ladies, help me out here. I think we're going to cut that little piece out of there. Okay, go ahead.
No, he gets to sit in the penalty box for a minute.
The penalty box. No, but so you're not alone in that fantasy, and that's exactly what the virtual reality world, if we have avatars, will allow us to do. Right? It'll allow us to be more fluid in who we are and in our fantasies, right?
But it's not a whole time like it. I think it comes from the idea of wanting to pleasure the opposite sex. Not so you can go there for a minute, but you're out, and it just you want to know. You're curious about how that feels on the receiving end, hoping that it feels as good as the as the giving end. I guess I don't know. You know what I mean, right? So there's. But you're curious about it. You can't and as a female, you can't imagine what it is to be in that dominating giving position. Mm-hmm. But
you never really know.
You don't really know what it's like.
Well, this is I always like bringing up the Matrix because I feel like it delves into so much of this shit when they're talking about chicken, and he's like, this is why everything tastes like chicken, because they couldn't figure out what chicken tastes like, so they just made everything kind of taste the same. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So even if in a simulation you could experience sex from the other point of view, how would you know that it's right and not just a guess from the simulation?
Well, this is it. It's got to be programmed. So there's still somebody else's perception coming in. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Where you have like what's legal in sex and what's not, and then a whole black market of potential otherwise, right? And then the question is, where does the law say it's okay and not okay if it's an avatar? If it's not a physical person, how do we apply the laws to our avatars when it's a sense of imagination? Not.
I think you have to stay away. I mean, unless it's a dystopic reality, right? The law is something that you want to stay away from because you're getting into a fascist state of thought crime, right? And that's thought really crime. Right. It's very
Minority Report. Is that Minority Report?
Yeah.
The most elegant way I saw this handled, I can't remember what movie it is. It was Blade Runner. Anyway, the character goes to like an underground, like you said, like a black market, like a shady area, right? Like kind of the red light district. And he kind of goes in there, and there's booths just like a red light district, but it's people selling more virtual products. So the one guy's like, "Hey, come on down. You want to experience sex as a woman?" And the next guy's like, "Hey, you want to, kill your wife?" Or like they're trying to sell you
Experiences.
imaginary experiences,
Right.
And
Okay. Yeah.
without getting into it, the narrative just took you on this little journey.
Right.
You kind of imagined that the world was kind of fucking crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of gave you a taste, and you can imagine that there's probably a rabbit hole you can go down there, but we're not going to really get into it. We're just going to move along into why this character's here, right?
So, for our book, I think we definitely need to draw the boundaries. What arguments aren't we going to get into? What are we going to get into? But we have to touch upon this subject because it's part of human nature and connection. And our book is about connecting people together to build something great. Yes, it's a business-centered book, but if we don't really delve into what connection means, then we're going to be missing a piece.
Can I say what I hope it would be? I mean, well, it sounds like I'm not going to give you guys an option, but I'm a little bit. I'm more conservative on this approach, so I think a male female dynamic in a workplace, a light level of flirtation is fine, right?
Why male female?
Well, okay, you're right, and I'm not discounting the spectrum. I'm just saying that flirtation between coworkers, right?
I think that's pretty normal, right? Everyone's got there's the work wife or work husband or whatever, right? That's a common term, right?
Really?
Never heard that before?
I've heard it.
Oh, this is my work wife, right? We're
exactly.
Oh, I see.
It's like my best friend at work. They're generally of the other sex. And everyone just knows that you two are buddies, but both of you are married to other people.
Interesting.
Might be an oil and gas thing.
Maybe.
Yes, I've heard the term before.
That's very interesting. But so where are you taking this? And so again, back to where you're going to take this in the book. So you have the book, and what does the ideal look like? A healthy workplace that that allows for flirtation and like fun and play and respectful of people's boundaries, but still I think this is a natural skill, and to make norms and laws.
I think in our beginning state of the book, where everything is a risk tolerance for companies to succeed and maximize profits, that they've absolutely eliminated that. It's too high of a risk. It's too much of a profit loss. If they have to deal with lawsuits and sexual harassment, or there's too much gray area, so they eliminate it. In fact, they track it. I'm just going off the top of my head here, guys. Yeah. In fact, they track it, and you get violation notices, red flag notices that you've crossed the line outside of the policy of our, this is work. This is work. We're about getting our work done. You want to do that in your spare time.
Could you imagine that it somehow monitored you? So, the beautiful coworker walked by. Notice how I didn't say male or female. Walks by, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's, and you get zapped or something.
Right? Because your heart rate goes up and it senses it.
Yeah, some sort of signature that just says, no, you're not, we know what's going on there. And
it's not sort of around like your communications, right? Like we've met people that have AI programs that will crawl over email communications and then give you kind of a score on like culture or like keywords or like things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's not out of the realm possibility that you send a message to someone and it goes, we recommend you tweet this, like this is too flirtatious or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you have a filter of 40% that says
kind of like a Grammarly, but like a sexually.
Sexually. awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. That's
$1 million idea right
There
here.
you go. You heard it here first.
Here first, you're creating an email filter called Sexually that helps you eliminate sexual innuendos in your email.
Are you a creep? Other people find you creep.
yeah. Yeah, you get like a creep. You get like a creep rating or a meter or something like that. What's the opposite for the female, or what's the the corresponding for the female? You're being too flirtatious or floozy, or what's the because there's creep on one side. So what's the equivalent on the other side?
What's that movie with Michael Douglas and Demi Moore? It's about that. Remember that from the 90s? It was it's like.
Is that where he's the billionaire or whatever, and he pays her to sleep?
No, he's just a successful businessman, and then she is a businesswoman, but she entraps him. It's like reverse sexual assault. She manipulates him, and anyway, that's the premise.
Maybe
of
it's entrapment.
Okay, we're getting down a whole rabbit hole here of gender bias with words.
Are we?
Yeah, because you say, I said the word creep, or you said the word creep, and you automatically thought man. You have a male gender bias to that word creep.
Okay, yeah.
There is no gender to the word creep if you look up the definition.
Okay, you're right. Most people would think of.
We got to start questioning this stuff, man. We're not binary anymore. We're on the spectrum. We got to start questioning our biases in our words.
It's a hard conversation to have when you start talking about unconscious bias and stuff like that. To admit that of course you have unconscious biases based on your experiences, right? It's not an easy conversation to have that.
And I picked one word in my life, and it was the word strong. And I have an unconscious bias to think of a man when I hear the word strong. And I have been coaching my daughter on a regular basis that she is strong. And I want her to pick an image in her head. And I've been coaching my son that I am strong, and that his sister is strong, and that he is strong. And I don't want him or her to have a gender bias with the word strong. I'm trying to eliminate it. I picked one word. There are so many words, but I feel I could handle as a parent.
Wow.
I actively do, but this is going to be such a big issue, is the unconscious bias within our words when it comes to gender, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to these things.
I applaud you on that. I like that example of strong. That's that's really good. I like that.
I can start with one word. Thank you.
I've wrestled with it a little bit. There's a thinker, Heather Haying, along with Brett Weinstein, and they do this podcast called The Dark Horse. It's extremely successful, but her argument as an evolutionary biologist to say, hey, wait a minute, hold up on the the fluidity of the fluid nature of gender terms, and I think this is going too far kind of thing, right? And realizing that there really is a male-female foundation. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here in terms of reproducing entities in terms like DNA and stuff like that, right? So, but I'm torn a little bit as a thinker, because I don't know if how much of this is natural for it to progress and unfold, and is it liberating? Is it a byproduct of our liberal democracies where you'd see women's rights and then gay rights, and then naturally what is the next one that smaller groups of minorities are saying, hey, well, I want to, and then everybody wants a turn to be liberated from any kind of oppression or prejudice, or because it's looked as something that can advance them as self-identifying, autonomous individual, and I guess the thing is that is this a symptom? Well, so I could say something like, is this a symptom of a perversion or a misalignment with where virtues are actually headed towards, right? Or and that's really contentious, right? But you can imagine another world where people weren't so fixated on sexuality, and they were maybe focusing more on the word like strong, right? Like you're doing, which is different. There's more of a universal there, and what is strong for a male might be different than what is strong for a female. I mean, I don't know if anything's wrong with that, but it's more of a conservative stance, right? So I'm torn, because it's just like any interesting social thought or reality, it's having people think more deeply about it.
Yeah. It is so interesting, but I think like you're never going to remove sexuality. Sexuality is a desire at almost everybody's core. There are asexual people, right? Fair enough. But I would say 99% of a sexuality is a core desire, but gender has nothing to do with sexuality.
Yes.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
Birth sex has nothing to do with your gender association.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is where the words are confusing.
Yeah, but the biologists are saying fundamentally there's only two genders, right, that produce. So, I mean, there's a 1% of a 1% of a 1% part of the population that actually are born with a different kind of reproducing gender. I'm using reproducing in there because I don't think I'm getting the words correct, but I mean, sexuality can be more of a state of mind and imagination and projecting on who how you want to
so there's birth
experience.
You have your birth gender,
right?
That's not your gender. So like you said, sometimes you like imagine what it would be like to be the other person. Adam talked about when he pictures himself, he has hair. So how far of it is a stretch for it to be for somebody's perception of themselves to be a different gender? That's not a stretch. And who's to say that it's wrong? It's Adam's perception that he has hair.
I think, this is one of those scenarios where like everybody's right. The biologists on one hand are saying, sure, there's for the species to progress, it takes a male and a female, therefore we have an innate drive to tend towards that direction as a whole. And then I think we're also saying there's a whole sexuality and emotional piece on top of that that says we are much more complicated than that. That makes us different than animals, right? It's far more complex than that, that it's just like a piece of the puzzle. So I feel like when people start arguing based on their own points of view or whatever about a topic like this, because everybody's right. We're just, it's like coming at it from a different angle.
Well, you got to think about this. Mm-hmm. In species of animals that you have male, female, where they have a different.
Can you do that again, please?
Yeah. You like that?
Yeah.
Male, they have.
Sorry, just we only have 5 minutes left, so we got to keep everybody's attention on the. Do it again, one more time. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
Where you have a difference in the population, they have evolved to where females sometimes will switch to have male reproductive organs at a point to reproduce, and they flip back. This has evolved this way. Just because the human species hasn't yet evolved this way doesn't mean that we couldn't. And so at what point does birth gender not matter? That we are at a point in time in our evolution, we can see other animal species who have evolved in a way that they can change their reproductive systems in order to reproduce, both in the floral world and the animal world. This happens.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on that, though, because just the time scale of evolution is not just a matter of a political will and something that comes out of a generation. This is a very, very recent cultural thing that's happened, right?
No, it's not. Adam proved it with the Roman times. This is not recent. We have gone down a rabbit hole in our society.
Mm.
And now we're coming back to some sort of enlightenment.
Right. Actually, yeah, there is a girl that does a podcast with us, and she's a two feather, I think. And so, she's just, she just identifies, she's part of the LGBT community, and we put on a series with her, and she's Indigenous and supports Indigenous languages and, this type of thing. So I have to say I'm, more or less unknowledgeable because there's a complete lack of experience in that. It's hard. I don't know how to, other than trying to listen to people. And
well, it's interesting.
It's hard to relate to that.
Right. An interesting point Kaylin said about like, what point does it matter? Like, imagine a future, virtual world aside, imagine a technology where you could completely change your sex, like, completely.
People are already doing it.
Right. Internally too, everything. Like 100%. Then would it matter? Think of the people born in that era. They wouldn't care if you met someone that was born this way but now looks this way or this way. You probably wouldn't care because it is so fluid. Right? Whereas, based on our history and the way we've been brought up and the way we live, might struggle with that whole concept.
Yeah, that's very.
Yeah, I was watching Queer Eye the other day, and that was one of their episodes. Is that somebody was in a heterosexual relationship, and one of them decided to go transgender, and the other person decided that they loved them too much to care, but they had to go through that journey, and it was a hard journey for the significant other to go through. But Adam, you bring up a great point. In the future, where these people can choose and it's more accepted, it's just, I don't think people are going to care the way we've been brought up to care. And I think there's a bunch of us who are more on the spectrum who already don't care. Some of you guys are just archaic.
Well, you know what? That's a perfect summary. We've got just a few seconds left. And let me say this duo that's sitting across from me virtually have surprised me. And I'll have to say that there's been a very liberating thinking at play and surprising, but it has come out of Alberta and it has come from these two. And that's very interesting. So I applaud you guys on that. And that's a wrap. I want
next
to thank
week
you
it's
for
climate change.
You don't worry, Dan. We'll go back to climate change.
Yes, climate change and truckers and COVID. Okay, we're back to back to the good old oil country, right? Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.